Primitive Life, a novel by Louise Richardson. Chapter 3, Beached, Part 2. Roy Nordstrom has been murdered, and everyone is acting guilty. Harvey. I found it sticking out of the sand, I tell the deputy. The mini recorder at the edge of the surf is probably ruined. It looked like the one Dr. Nordstrom dictated into all the time. So I picked it up to bring it to him. When I got to his tent, everyone was gathered around saying he was dead and that someone should call the police. I was just walking on the beach. I drove Mrs. Nordstrom here from Syntex State. I was coming away, and she wanted to surprise her husband. She went to his tent, and I took a walk down the beach. Then we found out he's dead. Shit, it's mostly the truth. I did find the little recorder in the sand after I dropped it there and pressed it into the beach with my bare foot. I tell the blonde deputy kid it couldn't possibly work, but it does. It may be a nice bit of evidence, maybe even a bit of damning evidence for someone. Not for me. I was still on the road when it happened, according to that little device. That little beauty will be my alibi. That, plus my gasoline credit card receipt from 9:47 last night. I couldn't possibly have gotten here before 10 o'clock. I was too far away. After Harvey Llewellyn offered his 2 cents worth, Sheriff Hal Henderson brought the little dictation device to Faye Nordstrom to see if she could make heads or tails of what it said. Hal did not put much stock in all the science hocus pocus the shaggy professor spouted, but he did have a theory that the recording indicated the time of the crime. It was an idea Harvey had planted oh so subtly in Hal's mind. Not much more fertilizer was needed for it to spring into full bloom. Faye. I'll play it for you again, the sheriff said, and maybe you can tell me what your husband was saying. It mostly makes sense up to this point, which are, of course, the jellies and cone jellies. 10:04, the neat area, Roy's voice said on the tape, some of his words digitally clear with unnatural gaps of silence you could drive Harvey Llewellyn's SUV through. Comb jellies? The sheriff puzzled. Doesn't make any sense. Then he says, by jellies he means jellyfish, correct? Yes, I said. Comb jellies are creatures closely related to jellyfish. I've learned that much from being a biologist's wife. He was dictating notes for his next book, that's all. Okay, mused the sheriff, but it sounds like he was about to continue at 10:04, and then something stopped him. Maybe 10:04 p.m. was the time of death? You think so? I heard myself dissembling. I wept uncontrollably. I wept because my husband was dead, and all I could think to do was distance myself from the crime. I wept because somehow I felt guilty that I had screamed at him, and after 11:30, because I saw him alive around then, when he was screwing that girl. The wife is always the prime suspect in these matters. If somebody had heard me yell, it might have looked like I had a motive. Even if I did have a motive, I didn't do it. At least, I don't remember doing it. But then what in the hell was the need area, he continued. Something to do with the jellyfish? Doesn't exactly compute, now does it? Perhaps he was referring to another matter. He often switched subjects when he thought of something he forgot to do. Maybe he was interjecting something about a departmental issue and then went back to his book dictation. Well, thank you, Mrs. Nordstrom. You've been very helpful. We'll get back to you if we have any more questions. Well, at least they have a couple of deputies camping out with us, Leah Pollock told herself, though she wished Otto the surfer were among them. The kids the sheriff picked for the protection detail barely seemed to be out of high school, but old Hollis wasn't creeping around. And that was some comfort to Leah. She tried to recall some more details for the police investigation, but nothing new came to her. Leah. Mrs. Sharp is still comforting Keisha Cumming. The poor thing is still in shock. I wonder if I would be in any better shape if I'd found him dead. Mrs. Sharp is a fine motherly type, and besides, I guess black folks feel the need to help each other at emotional times like this. Dr. Nordstrom? Keisha called outside the tent. And then she opened the flap and let out a weird sort of scream. Then we all came running up there. Mrs. Sharp must have been there first. Well, I didn't want Roy to die, not really, but maybe somebody had even more reason to be pissed off at him. The nerve of the man. First he calls off our fair because he's being the responsible adult all of a sudden. And then, when I have already moved on past our relationship, he wants to grope me because he gets horny in the middle of the night on the beach in the moonlight. He couldn't get any satisfaction from me, so he moved on to Keisha. The sheriff played the dictation tape for me, like I'm sure he did for the others. It sounds like something stopped Roy at 10:04. The sheriff thinks that was the time of the murder. I don't know. It seems like all the commotion happened later that night. And what did he mean by need area? Seems like an awkward turn of phrase to me. Keisha. Oh, Mama, I tell her, sobbing, I'm so sorry. You didn't mean to do a thing, I know that, she tries to reassure me. He found me walking on the beach and took my hand. You don't need to tell me now. We went to his tent and sat on his cot, just talking. Don't you dare tell any of this to the police. It wasn't rape exactly. He's dead, Keisha. What does it matter? Let him take the blame. It was good for a while. I don't have to know. I don't want to know. Then I felt guilty. He's my teacher. He's married. What was I doing there? It was rape. Just say it was rape. I tried to leave, and he pulled me back, but gently. All that doesn't matter now. Just say he raped you. That's not how it was. You wouldn't want me to lie, would you? I thought he was violating you. That's why I hit him with this pan. I know. If you tell the police it wasn't rape, well, it makes things complicated. Mama, you always told me to tell the God's truth, the absolute truth, no matter. I guess I did. I'm so proud of you. What are we going to do, Mama? I guess we'll tell the truth then. So I bury my face in her shoulder and cry away. She kisses my head, and that is all we have to say until the police drop by the tent. Tuesday morning, in his office, Sheriff Hal Henderson mulled over all the testimony. his feet propped on his cluttered desk. He rubbed his chin, scratched his head, and took a sip of black coffee, glancing at his portable rabbit-eared Samsung to catch up on the morning TV news. Then, a jet airplane just struck one of the towers of the World Trade Center in New York. Hal took notice and watched the video in the same state of shock and disbelief shared by millions of his countrymen, by billions of his species. Man, what a horrible accident, he thought. Maybe hundreds of people were killed. Was the pilot drunk? At least the building was still standing. The jet didn't even shake it. There was now another jet. It sliced the other tower in two. These were not accidents. He thought he had a murder to sort out. Wait a minute. His son, his faggy son, as he thought of him, was in New York, wanted to be an actor, would always be a waiter if he was lucky. Worked at what restaurant? They hadn't spoken for so long the sheriff forgot. Windows of something. Windows on the world. Windows on the World Trade Center. But it was early morning. He wouldn't have been there yet, would he? God damn. He better call Jan. Jan could still call her son. The phone rang and the sheriff answered it. Jan had tried to call New York already, but couldn't get through. God damn. The towers were collapsing before his eyes. End of Chapter 3, Part 2. Primitive Life by Louise Richardson.